Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to today's live discussion on Bhagavad Gita as it is. We are on chapter 14, the three modes of material nature. We shall be concluding the chapter today, and we'll begin from verse 22 and we'll go up to the last verse of this chapter, which is verse 27. Ukam karoti vachalam pankum langhayate kiram yat kripatamam vande Shri Gurum Nitarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hari Om. That's verse 22. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Prakasham cha pravritim cha mohameva cha pandava na dveshti sampravritani na nivritani kankshati. Verse 23. Udasina vadasino gunaryo na vichalyate guna vartanta ityevam yovatishtati nengate. 24. Samadukha sukha swastha samaloštashma kankshanaha tulya priya priyo dhiras tulya nindatma samstutihi. Verse 25. Mana apamanayo stulya stulyo mitra parikshayo mitraripakshayo sarvarambha parityagi gunatitah sa uchyate. So this was verse 25. So when we finished yesterday, Arjun was asking Krishna that what are the symptoms of a transcendentalist person who has gone beyond the modes of material nature. Now Bhagwan is answering Arjun's questions. We need to observe which are our own thoughts and we should cultivate them. This is how we progress. And thoughts will come and thoughts will go, but we can say no to them, the ones which we know are not going to be helpful in our life, which are going to bring us down to the lower platforms or the lower material modes of material nature. We can say no to those thoughts which when they come into our mind, and this is just the intrusion of the modes. So what are the thoughts? Thoughts are actually being generated when our mind and our intellect and everything else and our body is coming in the contact of the material nature. So, and then the modes, they work on us. So like an intruder, they'll be invading us. So if we want to say no to them, we can, and we can just watch them come and go, just like a detached observer. We have to transcend the modes by these characteristics. Now Bhagwan is telling what are the characteristics of a person who has transcended the modes of nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O son of Pandu, who does not hate illumination, attachment and delusion when they are present, or long for them when they disappear. And the person who has an unwavering and undisturbed mind through all the reactions of the material qualities, who remains neutral and transcendental, knowing that the modes alone are active, and that person who is situated in the self, that person who has understood that he is the soul, he is the Atma, and the person who regards the happiness and distress equally alike, and who looks upon the lump of earth or a stone and a piece of gold as equal, who is steady in mind and who is situated equally well in praise and in blame, who is equal towards the desirable and the undesirable, the honor, dishonor, who treats both friend and enemy equally, and who has renounced all the material activities. Such a person is said to have transcended the modes of material nature. So the three questions of Arjuna are being answered in this in these verses, verses 22 up to verse 25. So that's why they have been put together in the Bhagavad Gita, just to keep the flow going. Bhagwan is telling that a person who will have gone beyond the modes of nature will be having no envy, and he wouldn't be hankering, he wouldn't be longing, he wouldn't be waiting all the time or working hard for something all the time. That person will be living in the body, the self, that is us, isn't it? Our self. So who is self? Self is the soul. That person will be living in the body and in the material world, but will be able to control their thoughts, and they will not be under the control of the modes of material nature. And when that person will be out of their body, that person will be out of the clutches of the modes, goodness, passion, or ignorance. Any of them wouldn't be affecting that person at all. That person would have transcended, gone beyond. And the rest of us, we are just acting for our sense gratification and just being guided by our mind. Mind is getting affected by good thoughts, bad thoughts. There's no control over the thoughts, and just too much identification with the body, that yes, something happened to the body, then say, oh, I'm hurting, I'm this and that. But we don't realize this is only temporary. It is the hurts and everything is just because of the body. The soul is unaffected by anything, and we are not able to stay aloof from everything else. So now the next question concerns the dealings of transcendentally situated person. How does this transcendentally situated person, like, then this person is not affected by, as was told in the translation, by the honor, dishonor, enemy or friend, or gain and loss, desirable and undesirable. That person is looking at the wealth, and we can say just a piece of earth or dust, same, on the same platform. That person is doing everything for the sake of Lord, for the sake of Krishna. That person is not doing for anything for their own sake. Now such person can be said to be transcendentally situated. Verse 27, Bhagwan says to Arjun, one who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. So, offering the devotional service to Lord under all the circumstances, we know the circumstances change all the time. And this is the reply to Arjun's third question. So that person who is, the first two questions have been answered in verses 22 to verse 25. Now third question is being answered. Bhagwan says the person who is always engaged in the devotional service under any kind of circumstances at once goes beyond the modes of material nature, and this person doesn't get disturbed by the activities of any of the modes of nature, and is always peacefully performing his or her bhakti yoga. Already explained in chapter 7 as well, that one who immediately surrenders to Krishna goes beyond the modes of nature. And we know Lord tells us that Lord's nature is that he is Satchidanand Vigraha, is eternal, blissful and full of knowledge. Because living entities, as the souls, we are part and parcel of Krishna. So that is our nature, but it has been covered because of the Maya, because of the so many births we have had on this earth. And once we are able to surrender to Lord and by remembering Lord, by doing the chanting, by doing our service, we are able to get the dust removed from our soul, from the mirror of our soul. Then we are able to come to the devotional life or the Bhakti Yoga. Now verse 27, which is the last verse of this chapter, says to us that Bhagwan is saying to Arjun, and I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. Now, did I recite the verse 26 in Sanskrit? I will recite it anyway. Verse 26, Mam cha yoga vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunana samatitya tan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. And the verse 27, the last one, Brahmano hi pratisthaham amritasya vivasyasya cha shashvatasya cha dharmasya sukhasya kantikasya cha. I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. Now, Bhagwan says Bhagwan is the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable. He is the basis also of the impersonal Brahman and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. So the constitution of Brahman is immortality, imperishability, eternity, and happiness. Brahman is the beginning of the transcendental realization. Paramatma, the super soul, is the middle and the second stage in transcendental realization, and the supreme personality of Godhead is the ultimate realization of the absolute truth. So everyone in this material world who know that there is God above all of us, who is the creator, maintainer, and annihilator, they are either on the Brahman stage or on the middle stage, which is the Paramatma of the super soul stage, or they are on the highest stage, which is the absolute truth. So everybody is on one or the other stage of the Bhakti Yoga. Material energy, as we know, is the inferior energy of the Lord, manifestation of the inferior energy of the Lord, and Bhagwan impregnates the material energy, and this is done with this fragments of the superior nature, and this is how the spiritual touch in the material nature is there. And when a conditioned soul, which is conditioned by the material energy, which has got the spiritual spark because God has created them, when they start serving Bhagwan, then their cultivation of spiritual knowledge begins. And Brahman is the first stage, Paramatma is the second stage, and absolute truth, which is Lord, is the ultimate stage. In the Vedic language, Prabhupada is telling us in the purport, it is also said, Raso Vaisaha Rasam Hi Ivayam Labdhavanandi Bhavati. When one understands the personality of Godhead, the reservoir of pleasure, Krishna, he actually becomes transcendentally blissful. This is from the Taittiriya Upanishad 2.7.1. The Supreme Lord is full in 6 opulences, we know. Now we also know that the servant of the king also enjoys everything equally, just like the king when he's serving the king. Similarly, the eternal happiness, imperishable happiness, and eternal life accompany the devotional service when we are serving the Lord, because Lord is the holder of all the opulences and we enjoy them as well. As prasad we are given. God looks after his devotees. Now, the living entity in the normal circumstances wants to lord over the material world, just wants to enjoy everything for himself. But in devotional service, as we know, everything is offered first to Lord, and then the remnants are taken as the prasad that is enjoyed. Everything is offered to Krishna first. So that helps. That way, when we are doing that, we are not getting entangled in the modes of material nature, because we are offering everything back to Krishna first. So just by offering everything to Krishna, one becomes situated immediately into the transcendental position that is beyond the three modes of material nature. And yes, by chanting, of course, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Observing the Ekadashis and fasting on, trying to fast to your abilities on the appearances and the disappearances days of the Lord and his devotees, by offering the bhoga, by doing the arti, and by doing self-study of the shastras, and by telling others what you have learned. This is how we engage ourselves in the service of the Lord, in the devotional service of the Lord, and thus who can thus situate himself in the Brahma Jyoti, the Brahman, that is the Brahman situation, or the different varieties of the Brahman conception is equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in quality, but not in quantity. Lord will be always bigger than, but the ultimate thing is to realize, to understand the Lord as the absolute truth. Thus sends the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 14th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of the three modes of material nature. Thank you for joining. Hare Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.